Hi everyone, Quiveen here from the comfort of my kitchen. In today's video, we are going to be taking a look at the month ahead. We will be looking into February. February often gets shortchanged as a month. It is a little bit shorter than the rest, and we're not going to have loads of new things to see during February. We don't have any particular meteor showers, but we will take a look at generally what's in the sky. Saturn is leaving our sky, as mentioned in a recent video. Here we are looking just at the sunset at the very beginning of February, and Saturn is still visible, but as you can see, even by the middle of the month, Saturn is below the horizon very soon after sunset, and by the end of the month, well, it's not even that dark at the same time. The days are certainly getting longer, and that should get more and more noticeable. Of course, the bright planet Jupiter will still be visible nice and early and for a large portion of the night. If we push ourselves just a little bit later, we will lose Saturn. By the time it's truly dark, Saturn is gone. And as we push a little bit later into the evening, we still have those same prominent constellations. We have Orion coming up to the south. Canis Major is also getting very visible. We have Gemini and Taurus. We have the Pleiades just there, barely visible in a city sky. We also have this lovely pentagon shape of Auriga, which I will get back to a little bit later. If we keep moving towards morning time, we can see that all of Canis Major definitely gets visible. It's all there above the horizon with the bright star Sirius. We have that lovely constellation Leo, which I mentioned in a previous video as well. And as we push up into morning time, that is Spica, the brightest star in the constellation of Virgo. A lot of the rest of Virgo can be a little tricky to spot. There are some faint stars. The constellation of Libra is basically invisible, but trust me, it's over there somewhere. As we start to see the moon coming up, early in February, we're very close to the new moon, so this is pretty close to morning time, and the moon is just next to that red star Antares in Scorpius. We still have Venus, at least for the early part of February, but here in the morning, if we keep pushing into the month, of course, the mornings will get brighter. Venus is also going to disappear lower and lower in the sky. So the same way we are losing Saturn in the evening, and we've really lost Saturn by the middle of February, we're also losing Venus, and we will have really lost Venus by the time we get to the end of the month. The moon passing close to Antares is one of the interesting things that the moon is doing this month. Because of the path the moon takes across the sky, we have these conjunctions where the moon gets close to these interesting things, and we can see the moon there just next to the red Antares. If we zoom in a little bit closer, we should be able to see the narrow crescent. There we go, that the moon really is at that time of the month when it's in this position. So that's a nice thing to take a look at. It should look nice, particularly through binoculars. Of course, you will have to get up very early in the morning if you want to see this in darkness. Here we are about 6 o'clock in the morning, and of course very, very low to the horizon. If we bring ourselves back into an evening sky, and we'll keep pushing later into the month, we'll come past the new moon when the moon is basically in front of the sun. We're not really going to see it. Saturn already leaving the sky as the moon comes up, so we won't really get to see a close conjunction between the moon and Saturn, because you won't really be able to see them at the same time. The moon should be just in there, but practically invisible when it is that close to the sun. We'll push ourselves later, leave those stars and planets come back out, and we'll see the moon comes up pretty close to Jupiter, and then right on top of the Pleiades. So this is another great thing to take a look at through a pair of binoculars. The moon isn't quite full, so we don't have to worry too much about its overwhelming brightness. It is a lovely half moon with the Sea of Tranquility visible just there. You may remember from earlier videos, the football player on the moon with their head, body, 2 legs and football. There's the Sea of Tranquility, the body, and we can see the shape of the Pleiades just up above it. We can only see the brighter stars in the Pleiades here. This is often confused with the Little Dipper. Some people do call this the Little Dipper, when of course the Little Dipper is Ursa Minor back with the North Star. But we can see this is a very similar shape, and it is understandable that people would get mixed up. Here it is with the moon out of the way, letting us see a lot more of the stars, but we can still see that shape, that plow-like or pot-like shape with the brighter stars, even when the other stars are there as well. If we keep moving forward, the moon will move through some famous locations in the sky, just passing through the bottom of Auriga there into the heads of Gemini, and then down right next to Regulus, the brightest star in Leo. Around this time of the month, we will be coming up to the full moon, and I will talk more about the full moon in the next video. I'm not sure why the orbit of the moon is coming up, but it must be because I have my orbits turned on. There we go, we'll turn those off. We know the moon goes around the Earth. It won't look very interesting if it's just in our sky. Zooming in here, we are pretty close to the full moon, 99.6% full. That is pretty close to full, about as full as we're going to get. 99.8% there, little bit fuller. There we go, the 24th, 99.8%, and the moon is 400,000 and change kilometers away. So this means the moon is about as far away from us as it can get when we're both on the same side of the planet. Of course, it's a little bit further when it's on the opposite side of the planet Earth. We can see here on the 25th, the day after the full moon, it is a little bit further away, about 1,000 kilometers, or yeah, about 1,000 kilometers. But when we're talking about things on the scale of hundreds of thousands of kilometers, 1,000 kilometers won't make too much of a difference. The moon does get a little further away from us when it's full, or a little nearer to us when it's full, as it orbits the Earth. The moon orbits the Earth in an ellipse, which is how we can have supermoons. If the moon is at its closest to us and full, that's a supermoon. If the moon is at its furthest from us and full, that's a micromoon, and that's what we're seeing here. The full moon in February is a micromoon. So unfortunately, one of the most interesting things in February is that the moon is going to be a little fainter. Don't worry, it's only a few a few percent, 14% or so of a difference. So we won't really notice it, certainly not with our naked eye. But if you take a good photo of the full moon in February, that's your micromoon, and you can take a similar photo of the moon when it's a supermoon, and you can do a comparison that way. It is a lot easier to see the difference if you're comparing photos than if you're just trying to use your memory. Of course, memory doesn't always work perfectly. So we're going to move out into the countryside, and the first thing I want to do is bring the moon back in line with the Pleiades just there. We can see the moon here is a little almost ahead of the Pleiades as the moon is about to set at the end of the night. But if we move back up to the middle of the night, the moon's pretty much right under the Pleiades. And if we move back towards sunset, the moon, well, by the time the sun is setting, the moon's already pretty much under the Pleiades. But if you do get a chance here, this is the 16th, February the 16th. Now we can still see a little bit of nebulosity, even with the moon there, given that we are in the countryside and it's a little bit darker. If you do go out and spot the moon pretty much under the Pleiades here as the sun is going down, you can either watch the moon or go back out an hour or two later and see how the moon has moved. Of course, the moon is orbiting around us. It doesn't just move in our sky because the Earth is turning. The moon is also moving. Oh, those were days, come back to here. The moon is also moving on its own. So we can see that happening here pretty much in a time lapse. This is going backwards, so we'll come up to here and we'll start to go forwards again. So we can see the moon here directly under the Pleiades, or the Seven Sisters, on the 16th of February. And if you go out and look at them early in the evening, it will be directly underneath. And as the moon itself orbits around the Earth, it will move away from the Pleiades, and also as the Earth turns, the moon and the Pleiades will get closer to the horizon and closer to setting. So you can watch both of those phenomena occurring at the same time. Now we're getting a lovely view of the sky here. We can see that glow of the Milky Way going straight through that pentagonal shape of Auriga. So Auriga is a constellation. I'll bring up the constellation lines first, so we can see that it is basically a pentagon. The top of the horns of the bull does collide with the bottom of Auriga, but they're not the same constellation. If I bring up the images, that'll be pretty clear. We can see Auriga is there with their goat, with their pet, and we can see that Taurus the bull is just crashing into the bottom of Auriga there. So it's another one of those stars that's shared between constellations. We can see that it's marked as Taurus, Beta Tauri, and also Gamma Aurigae. So it is in two constellations. You might remember from our video on the constellations of Perseus and Andromeda and Pegasus, that there is a shared star between Pegasus and Andromeda as well. Looking into Auriga here, we're looking into the Milky Way, we're going to see some interesting things. We're going to see some nebulae and some clusters of stars. I believe one of these is the Flame Nebula. I'll bring up the name so I can make sure. There we go, Flaming Star Nebula. It does have this lovely reddish pinkish color. We can see this nebula over here as well, the tadpole. You can see it has these dark absorption nebulae, this bluish reflection nebula, and then this reddish emission nebula. So you can take a look back at my video on deep sky objects if you'd like to learn more about the different types of nebulae. So that's a brief introduction to our sky in February. We are going to have another look at February next week. We'll concentrate a little bit more on the moon, but we'll look at some other features that will be visible. Many of them are things that are visible at all times of the year, but I haven't got a chance to mention them just yet. If you enjoy these videos, I would like to let you know that you could, if you are in Cork City, come and take a look at one of these shows live, and a much longer version of this show in the Friary. So the Friary is a pub at the bottom of Shandon Street in Cork City on the 28th. So just a few days after this video is posted, I will be giving a live show in the Friary starting about 7:30 and running as long as my voice keeps, which should be a couple of hours, if not 3, or until they kick me out. So if you enjoyed this video, of course, I hope you like it. I hope you subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're already a subscriber, or if you're just interested in these videos, you can come along to the Friary on Sunday the 28th to watch one of these shows live. And of course, if you'd like to read some of this information, you can check out my website, queenscontent.ie. So I hope you'll join me next time, and if I'm lucky, I hope you'll join me in the Friary as well.